Hello and welcome to Comics with B and W. I'm Wilson, and with me as always is
Bobby, that's me.
And on today's show, we're going to be discussing Superfreaks, a comic from publisher Big Head Little Arms, written by Elsa Charretier and Pierre Collinet, with art by Margot Saltel, lettering by Ed Dukeshire, and edited by Chrissy Williams. I apologize if I butchered those French names. So welcome to another episode of Comics with B&W. Before we begin...
Wilson, have you ever even met a French person?
Yes, I have. I've totally met a French person. Wow. Just interrupts me in the middle of my intro, asking me if I've met a... I've met French people. They're cool.
Do you think they all eat baguettes?
Before we begin, I want to say we've released 2 episodes as of now. And the support has been really great. We really just want to thank you for your continued support as we do this. This is our 5th episode. Thank you guys for continuing to support us. This is another one that I recommended, and I realized when we always talk about what we want to do next. We haven't really done any traditional popular indie comics, and we've kind of only done minis as of now. And we'll obviously get to a lot of other ones eventually. But just a little...
This podcast is going to be the thing that finally gets me to read Invincible, isn't it?
It will. I mean, I haven't read it yet either. So we're going to eventually have to read the longer, more popular ones. I've never read Saga. So
neither have I.
Yeah, so eventually we will get to the ones you've all heard of. A little background on Superfreaks. It came out during Comixology when they announced they're doing original comics. It was one of the first ones they announced that they were going to do back in 2018, and that's when I read it. And I haven't read it since, and it just felt like a good time to revisit it for this podcast. Fair warning, this book does deal with legacy characters, so I can't promise I won't go on a legacy character rant. I'll try not
you're
to.
that much worse about it than I am.
No, it's like I just want to throw that out right in the beginning before we move on, that there will definitely be a lot of legacy character talk in this one, because that's just what the book deals with a lot, is just legacy characters. But
if you somehow are listening to this podcast and don't follow us on Twitter, this is all we talk about.
Yes, it really is. Which is, honestly, I won't lie, probably 90% of my motivation for wanting to do this book is so that we could not just talk about legacy characters, but have a very specific legacy character talk with how this book approaches it especially. So just moving into non-spoilers, just give you a quick overview of what the book is about. It's about people are given powers by a van that is worshipped like a god, and the main heroes of the world, the adults, disappear, and the untrained sidekicks have to deal with what is called the crisis that is coming for the mighty, powerful van. That's sort of a good general overview of what the book is about. And I remember this book being sort of just a cute superhero legacy story. I think the art just always stuck with me. And just get to the art real quick, I guess. I really like the art of the book. So that was probably the most memorable thing. So I always remembered it being very cutesy, not bad cutesy, but just sort of cutesy. These superhero sidekicks have to stop this crisis that's happening. And I was like, yeah, I kind of remember that. But actually it has some pretty heavy themes that I completely forgot about. That it varies on the emphasis that it tackles with them, but it does.
I wish it was able to get into them more, because I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
And I feel like it touched on them, but it didn't really have much to say.
Exactly.
It didn't have time.
It due to the plot of the book, and it still does great character stuff, I thought. But just due to what was happening, it didn't really touch on them as much as I was like, okay, I didn't remember this happened, but I wish they had done more with it, because I'm like, this is actually really interesting. Like I said, it does deal with, legacy characters, and both heroes and villains, which I thought was really cool. And it uses them in interesting ways, because it's about self-identity and the way that they think they're supposed to fit into these roles that they're sort of given when they get their powers. So what about you? What did you think?
I enjoyed the book. Like I said, I wish it was able to touch on the heavier subject matter more. It felt like it just wanted to bring it up without having much to say. But that aside, it was a really fun adventure. There were some twists I didn't see coming. and it was heartfelt. I liked the characters. I felt for them, and their journey was relatable. I'm just as much of a legacy fan as you are. I understand that importance. And although sidekicks are treated much here than they are in, say, Big Two comics, because this isn't really a spoiler, the sidekicks in this universe are treated more as assistants than actual heroes. The public actively hates them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was a fun adventure. I don't think it's up to the quality of the usual stuff we talk about on here, but I definitely would recommend it if you're in the mood for a light, breezy read.
Yeah, it definitely does that. Like you said, the sidekicks are more like interns that you see in like Hollywood movies where they just go and get coffee, or the dry cleaning for, the CEO or whatnot. And then
you always see that. I don't think I've ever gotten anything dry cleaned.
I mean, my internship, I didn't have to get coffee or anything like that. Like, they put me to work, like it was very much no, you're working here. What are you talking about? But I always love these types of stories though, where the sidekicks are then thrusted into having to be the heroes. And it was interesting the reaction the public had, because I do feel like that is sort of realistic, unfortunately, just in how people react to legacy characters a lot. Where, where in this one,
is this the talk you wanted to have?
No, not yet. I'm trying so hard. The original,
because Wilson's got a specific talk he wants to have, apparently.
Well, we'll see what happens. But they're like the originals legit disappear. That's that's the whole thing where when people talk about legacy, they're replacing our characters, and 9 times out of 10, no, they're not.
Damn you, Kyle Rayner!
And in this one, they legit do disappear. So then you learn a lot about this world through these psychic characters and just how untrained they are. All the way up to the villains themselves are also untrained, which we'll get more into in the spoiler part. But I just thought that was... I always thought that was very interesting, because you always see legacy characters as being mentored, not necessarily always well, but just being mentored in some capacity. So to see them not be given the time of day in any way, but still have to then save the world, I thought was nice.
Yeah, that's an angle I hadn't thought of, and yeah, I think you just raised my appreciation for the book quite a bit. Yeah, I really had not thought of that parallel. It probably is not what the author intended, because most people aren't as obsessive about legacy characters getting the respect they deserve as we are.
Yeah,
but it's there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what the writers intended with this. I highly doubt it was in
It's probably more of just a generational thing.
I think so too, most likely, but because we think of legacy so much and just the way we think of them, that's how I interpreted it. I do want to do a quick note just on the art through the series. I thought the art was probably the best thing in the book, because I really liked the colors and the designs of the characters. And I thought the fight scenes weren't necessarily too spectacular, but I thought they were really good in pushing the narrative forward when they were around. I don't want to get too much into it, because there are some, like you said, there are some twists into it. But I just really liked the art in this series. Like I said, when I read it a long time ago, the art was what I remembered from this book most of all. So I really liked the art.
I wouldn't say the art was my favorite part. It was very bright and colorful. Always a fan of that compared to comics. So many comics that can just be gray. So much gray and brown.
Yeah.
It's almost like a Western Guru in a way, which makes sense because the writer and cover artist did work on covers for Unstoppable Wasp.
Which is amazing. You should read it.
Yeah, we both love Unstoppable. Read Unstoppable Wasp, please.
Yes, please. But yeah, yes. That's a good comparison. I like that.
And the character design, the art wasn't the standout for me. The character designs are fantastic. Very unique silhouettes.
Yes, I really like the character designs. We'll go deeper into the characters in the spoiler section, but I really liked all the characters were not necessarily too unique, and like I've never seen these archetypes before.
We've seen them all before.
Yes.
We've seen every character in this book before, but they're done well.
Exactly, and it's what we've said basically, I think, in every episode we've done in this podcast, where even if you just do something we've seen before or something basic or something similar, if you do it well, then that's all that matters. And it's like
Except
just
Maxwell's Demons, because no book is like that.
no, I don't think we ever said that in that, because that was just a completely different book. But it's like if you're gonna do something basic in terms of whatever it is, whether it's themes or characters or whatever, do it well, and people will be fine with it more often than not. And I think that's what this book did extremely well.
Hell, there are some people who actively seek out specific tropes.
Yes, that's true.
I don't have an obsession with assassin baby characters.
I didn't look for it. It found me, To go over, just like I said, we were talking about the themes a bit. Like, just some of the things it covers is cyberbullying, the public and media influence and hatred that can cause, like bulimia, homophobic parents, abusive parents, self-image, self-confidence,
all
self-identity.
things I wish the book had gotten
Exactly.
into.
It's just like
none of that landed for me.
Like, and that's the problem. Like, I guess we can speak on the negative really quick. I have a more specific negative for the spoiler section, because it covers all of those, and I forgot about all of it, and that's not good. Like that. Those are actually extremely powerful themes to try to tackle, and especially in a book like this, because they're all in high school.
Yeah, and I especially thought the bulimia angle could have been interesting because of the way readership views female superheroes.
And I thought they were actually going to go more into it, because, again, in the spoiler section, I'll talk about the specific part where this happens. But then the plot kicks in, and then they kind of just go away from it. And I'm just like,
never mentioned again.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, you got... And I don't know, it could be one of those things where... a lot of these Comixology originals that are getting part 2 in like another volume have already gotten it. Like, they're either already in it or they're already done with it or whatever. Superfreaks was not one of them, unfortunately. So it could be one of those things where a lot more of that could have been explored in the next one, and more of the world, and just a lot more things could have been explored that they sort of tried to set up. But they were like, hey, but we want to make sure we get the plot in, so we'll set it up here, and if we're lucky, we get to dive deeper into it later. It's always a risk when you do things like that. If they had instead just focused on like one or two of those themes and then just hammered that home, it could have hit a lot harder.
For sure.
Anything else non-spoiler you want to bring up?
No, I think I'm ready to move on. In general, like I said, if you like superheroes, if you like legacy characters, if you're just in the mood for something light and fun that has a little bit of meat to it, check this out. It's a good book, and it's always worth supporting the really indie creations out there, because you never know what else could be from those creators.
Absolutely. I think if you have, like, this is a good book if you have kids, especially. If you just have kids who want to get into comics, I think Superfreaks is a great book to give them, because it has a lot of great introductory type of comic material, basically, where you can read it and it's like, okay, this is what comics is about. And then
the bright colors will definitely appeal to them. The characters will appeal to them.
Yeah,
and
you basically build from that. Like, what did they like about this book?
There's also a lot of humor in there for them.
There is a lot of humor.
The humor, it's pretty juvenile, so it's definitely on their level. I mean that as a compliment.
I thought the humor, it wasn't bad humor. It's just one of those, these are kids type of humor, so, which is great. Like, if you can write kids humor well, that's actually a pretty good skill to have. Not a lot of people can actually do that correctly. But all right. So we're going to move
on to spoilers.
Move to spoilers. So you were talking about the twist. So you didn't see the reveal of La Brute being an alien and the Mighty Van being the narrator, Lina? Did
not see either of that coming, did you?
When I first read it, I did not. When I was reading it this time, I remembered that there was a twist, and I was like, I couldn't remember what it was. And I remember that the van was like an alien, but I didn't remember that she was the narrator. And I knew there was something with La Brute, but I couldn't remember what that was. And I was like, oh, that's right, he's the alien guy. I was like, I can't remember what these people are. But yeah, like, the entire thing was basically sort of an undercover love story, so to speak. La Brute, Granver, just trying to get his girl back.
Yeah,
which was nice. It made the narrative, like the caption boxes narrative that they did make more sense, and it wasn't just an omnipresent narrative
Yeah,
that they were
I,
doing.
I really appreciated that. Yeah.
Yeah, because such a tough thing to do, especially in comics, that type of narration. So I think, yeah, so this is something I thought was interesting. Going to the characters, I think one of the more interesting things was the nonchalance about the hero versus villain shtick that they had in this book, because it was very. I guess we should say what the characters' names are now. So the main character, the heroes are Blue Aura, Circuit, Rookie, and LeBrute, and the
Rookie, best
villain.
girl.
Rookie was awesome, and I loved. She kind of had probably the most. Her and Blue Aura had like the most of a journey.
Yeah, for sure.
Red could have had more, and the villains are Red and Garb. I think Red could have had more, but they kind of dropped the ball with her. With the hero and villain shtick, because they were all sidekicks, they really blurred that line of what a hero and a villain was. They kind of just figured.
We
Uh,
fight, but also we hang out and get McDonald's.
exactly, because they showed like Red and Circuit were flirty friends like really early, and they, like I said, Rookie goes through the journey of being a hero sidekick in the beginning, but she does not want to be a hero. She does not want to be there. And then at the end of the book, she's like, I'm a villain. I'm going to become a villain. And it made sense for who she was. And I did like like we were talking about earlier with the bulimia thing. I really did like the conversation between Red and Rookie about that. And I just really wish that they had held on to that a lot more,
Hmm.
uh, because they were connecting on such a great level, but then the plot kicked in because of the reveal. I think had just happened,
Yeah,
so
crashes through the wall.
yeah, like right at that moment. I think it's like right at the end of episode issue 4. So it was unfortunate that that sort of happened, but they're all very much friends, and so it's interesting because they do this sort of trope of there's a bigger enemy, so now we have to team up. But then they also sort of subvert that trope because of the reveal of the alien. So they're like, well, we're it's not just like it's a bigger enemy. There's just a bigger goal that we need to both handle. So I don't know. I thought that was cool.
No, I agree. That was definitely the most interesting part to that and the twists. Blue Aura as a protagonist, what did you think?
I thought she was a good protagonist. I thought she was like, clearly the leader of the heroes when it was just the sidekicks and whatnot. But as we've been saying, they didn't do enough to really make her stand out in terms of just.
She seemed like this is gonna sound mean. I don't mean to be harsh, just because this book had so much potential that I feel like it didn't capitalize on.
Yeah.
I felt like she was a less well-developed Kamala Khan.
Interesting.
And of course, not a fair comparison at all. Only this book was 5 issues, right?
Yep, this is only a 5-issue book. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's not with you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got 6 main characters here, 4 heroes, 2 villains.
Because in the end, this is a team book still. Like it's clear who.
And although these aren't standardized issues, these are all like 30, 40 pagers. There still isn't enough time to give everyone a satisfying story. And Blue Aura has one of the better stories. Her and Rookie are the ones that actually get arcs.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, Blue Aura does have to fall into the role of generic hero leader.
Yeah, because she gets her arc, but she is still very much sort of beholden to the plot too often, unfortunately. Because they do a whole thing where, because they had like this subtle sort of background plot happening with her and this guy that she had been dating named Ben. And
who she's afraid won't like her if he finds out she's a sidekick.
exactly. And they bring it up like every once in a while, and they had a whole page where the moms talked, and it was just like, you keep bringing this up, but you're not really going anywhere with it, So it was weird, and the weird thing was,
I was expecting the boyfriend to turn out to have powers and show up in the final battle.
I was expecting the boyfriend to have a bigger role by issue 5, basically, however that would be. But in the end, after the heroes come back, they save the van, the aliens go away. She's confident in herself as a hero, and they're getting rid of.
That is her main arc. We should clarify in case
Yes,
you.
yes,
It's about gaining her confidence as a hero, and the idea that going from just sounding the idea that they have to replace the heroes to really feeling like they can replace the heroes.
yes, because especially with her, because she is a big girl. She's a big black woman. So she's always
Total points to this book for representation. This book has great diversity.
It really does. And one of the things in the beginning, she wants to feel smaller though. So that self-confidence, that's her arc of realizing,
And that ties into her powers, which eventually actually let her get bigger.
which was really cool. So it's a great arc that she has. And then at the end, when she finally has that confidence, but you don't see anything happening between like her and Ben. And it's just like, well, that was her character plot, was her and Ben, and then nothing happens with that. So it's like, okay, she had her internal, arc happen. That's great. I'm so glad. I think they landed that, but they didn't finish the other parts. So it was just kind of like, okay, well, you got where you needed to go, but you could have gone further.
What about Circuit? I personally thought he was kind of annoying, but charmingly so. He was fun, but I don't really feel he was the designated tech guy there to give the exposition and get some laughs. He's the tin dog from Doctor Who.
Yeah, okay, that is a good way to put it. I mean, this sort of gets into my specific negative in the book is that it's not great at explaining itself in terms of we had to get pretty deep into the story before we really knew what these characters were capable of. Mm-hmm. Now, part of that is on purpose, where they didn't want to that we had to learn about the powers as the characters learned about the powers, and that's fine. Like we just said with Blue Aura. By the way, she changes her name at the end to Shine. She finds her own identity, all that stuff. That's very cool. But I didn't even know like what Circuit's basic powers were for too long. It's one of those things where they wanted to show us and not tell us, and I think that's fine. You're doing a comic book, obviously show it, but you need to then show it. And they do eventually show it, but it's very easily missed if you don't look for it, because his powers they show it when they're weak. He does something like electricity, and he needs his suit in order to really use it to its full potential. And you don't even see the full potential use until issue 4 or 5, and he uses it in issue 2, I think. And you probably don't even realize he's doing it. So Circuit's powers, and Circuit and kind of in general, they just don't really showcase him in a way that he needs to be showcased. And then with Garb, who's one of the villains, they don't show his powers at all till issue 5.
Yeah, but he was at least I really liked Garb. I thought he was an interesting and fun character.
Yeah, because he's one of the villains, and I do think he got good character stuff, like as Garb, and I thought that was fine.
His whole arc is about choosing between being with the man he loves or the woman his rich father wants to set him up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's the gay character in this book, and I think that it's still one of those things where they sort of blur that line between hero and villain, because they're villains in the book, but they do treat them just as characters.
They're chill dudes.
Yeah, exactly. Which I thought was great. I think that's a great way to do it with this universe, because they're more antagonists. We always talk protagonists versus antagonists. They're more antagonists, and they have their own.
It's not quite Adam Westy, but it almost feels like this is a universe where heroes and villains only fight each other. They don't do anything else normally.
Like that is the entire purpose. And they had a whole page where Red robbed a bank. So then all the heroes go, so we gotta stop Red. She's a villain. She's robbing banks. But then they get to her, and she's like, oh yeah, I don't actually know how to rob a bank because my mentor never actually showed me how to do that.
That was hilarious.
Which I thought was great, because it also shows that the villains, they're the sidekicks too, and even the villains aren't being trained. So it really then it just helps connect the heroes and the villains for when you need them to be working together later. And
Right.
so that's a plus. But just my negative was just, it just doesn't explain itself in the characters too well till it's sort of too late, and you're like, oh, I didn't even realize they could do that till right now, and I'm almost done with the series. Um,
Yeah.
so that was just
But
kind of weird.
since we just brought her up, want to talk about Red?
I think Red could have been one of the better characters in the book, because I feel like she had probably like one of the strongest motivations and potential for an arc, but it didn't go anywhere. Like
Her mom is horribly abusive and awful.
yes,
Poor, she has to do all the work because her mom doesn't want to.
and she doesn't even go to school because of that. Yeah, so
She's got it rough, but again, it's a plot line we don't have enough time to really dig into. Any of these characters on their own could have had a great solo journey over 5 issues, but we're constantly cutting between them.
yeah, because like I said, in the end, this is still a team book, and that's so risky to do with a bunch of new characters and a whole new universe, and you're doing a team book, so now you have to explain the lore of the universe. You need to explain who these characters are, the relationships to each other.
If you could have picked one character to be the star, who do you think would have worked best?
One
Not
character,
not necessarily your favorite. The others
Yeah.
can still be in the book as support, but who do you think would have worked the best as a protagonist?
if I had to pick Blue Aura,
Okay.
she would have been the star of the book. Like, she would have been the POV of the entire book, and everyone else supports her, but she's the reason everything moves the way it moves.
Got it.
That's how I would have done it. And I would have. And okay, I feel terrible about saying this because I loved her, but Savage, I probably just would have,
Oh my god, I forgot about Savage.
yeah, I would have dropped her completely.
She is existing in an entirely different book.
She really
She's
is.
a great character, really, really, really fun powers.
Yes.
But she contributes nothing here.
Because here's the thing: if you wanted to do because they did, and we talked about this. Was it last? I think, yeah, when we did the Old Guard. If you want to bring in a new character into this world that's already existed
make
for
them
these
the
other
POV.
characters. Exactly, you make them the POV, and this book did not do that. It kept it on Blue Aura basically, and then it did the reveal, and it like kept it, as a team thing. So Savage, her arc basically begins and ends like in one issue where she finds her voice. Like, that was her whole thing.
Oh no, I have overly religious and strict powers. Oh yay, I have powers, I'm free.
And that's it. Like, that's her entire arc. So if they wanted to do Savage,
I swear, I like this book.
Yes, we do really like this book. We really do. We wouldn't talk about this book if we didn't like it. I promise. But it's just one of those things where if you wanted to do Savage, you either make her the POV and make her the character we're following that learns everything as the audience learns it, or you wait till to the sequel when everything else has already been set up and now we're ready for new things.
Right.
So it's just one of those things. And I don't blame them for putting her in because, like you said, like, she has a really cool power. I really like her look. But it's just one of those unfortunate things where she just sort of falls to the wayside because other characters are just stronger than she is in terms of just being characters.
Speaking of, I love Rookie, and I have no bad things to say about her other than I wanted more of her.
Yes, I definitely wanted more of her. I think Rookie is one of the better characters. She has one of the stronger arcs in the book. I loved her powers. I thought her powers were really cool. She can control her shadow. When LeBrute got hurt, I loved how her sort of apathy towards being a hero sort of like hit her so hard. And she's like, I can't believe it. She's
like, she blamed herself. Like, if she'd been there and not been so afraid of being a hero, she could have done something.
Exactly. And then even when it turns out he was an alien and he was now fighting the heroes, she's like,
she still cares about him, and she's going to protect him against the heroes.
She's like, then I'm going to be a villain because I promised I will not let him get hurt again. And it's just like, go ahead. And what I loved so much was Blue Aura. He's like, that's so good. I'm so glad you found yourself. But now I'm going to have to hurt you. And that's what I mean by it's just like these people are friends with each other. But
that's such a fun idea of the heroes and villains are all actually friends.
It really is. And I really did like that. I like that. That was really refreshing way of doing that. And I don't think we said the way they got their powers was from the van. That's why they worship the van like it's a god, because the
All of the
van.
humor around the newscaster worship and his Christ of the van, that was comedy gold.
It was really great, and it was anytime the van did anything, and everyone's like the mighty van. It was.
Perez be the van.
I thought it was really inventive. I really did. That's one of the reasons I really liked the book, was I did think it had a lot of really cool creative ideas of
Yeah,
how
it mixes its creative ideas with its tropes.
exactly with how to do tropes we've seen and story we've seen before, which honestly is all you really need to do. And it's not like too crazy ideas. It's just like, that's cute, that's cool, I like that.
And now for the best characters, LeBrute's cats.
Oh, you want comedy? I love LeBrute's cats. I love them so much. I love that they just like turned on the universal translator and then just like, here, you can understand what they're saying now. Like, no explanation on it. They just said it exists.
The food giver hasn't returned.
And they just all just sat there and ate all the food. It was great. I'm a huge cat person, so
Same. I love that. But no, LeBrute himself, I really liked him early on. The twist only made him more sympathetic. I have no complaints. I feel like his arc was perfectly well served.
I liked, especially when they did the reveal, and now, you're like, oh my goodness, he must be a villain. And then you get the next reveal, which is that he's just there for the love of his life, who is trapped in the van. And they're all just like, why did you attack us? And it's like, last time I came here in peace, you guys attacked me. And we saw that. We see what happens when they made him LeBrute, which was basically, torture. And so he's like, so yeah, I attacked first this time. And it's like, yep, he had every reason to do that. Like, he had no reason to think you guys would be any different. But that's another thing, with legacy characters just in general, they want to and should and oftentimes do try to do things differently than their predecessors, try to do things better than their predecessors. And that's another reason I love legacy characters so much.
Right. You want to do your legacy character talk?
All right, so let's just get into legacy characters just real quick.
Because we covered the entire cast. We've talked about the plot. We talked about the art. Let's get to the legacy.
Okay, so we won't, I think we're already maybe 30 minutes into this, so I won't go too deep into it. But we do keep talking about legacy characters, and in a way, even though these are sidekicks, they are still legacy characters, and it just showcases the fact that not all legacy characters are the same, basically. I think a big misunderstanding with legacies is that they either have to be blood related, or that they have to have a close relationship with the original heroes, or even a good one. Some people don't have necessarily a good relationship with the original hero, but they still take up the legacy anyway. I mean, you really think Joker being Red Hood and Jason Todd being Red Hood was all that good? I don't think so.
Maybe Jason has a crowbar fetish.
I mean, something's going on. Or that the legacy has to take the mantle of the original hero. That doesn't always have to happen either, but that doesn't necessarily mean they aren't legacy characters. Legacy heroes and the ideals behind them, don't all fit in one box. You can have your Dick Graysons, your Helena Wayne, your Riri Williams. They all are legacy characters, but they found their own sort of archetypes of how they wanted to be heroes. But you can still also have, Cassandra Cain, Stephanie Brown being Batgirl, Laura Kinney being Wolverine, Sam Wilson being Captain America, where they take up an actual mantle of an original character, and neither of those are wrong in the pursuit of creating legacy heroes. And so these characters are sidekicks in their legacies, and due to their relationship with wanting to find self-identity and just the poor relationship they had with their mentors, if you can even call them that, really, it made sense that they would have their own legacies that they want to carve out in this world. And so I just think that that's made sense for them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, one, legacy characters are bad, or two, that there's only one way to do legacy characters. So yeah.
Very nicely said. Legacy characters are the best damn thing about ongoing comics. It's they take full advantage of the long-form storytelling. They bring new meaning to long-existing mantles. They bring representation with important mantles to ignored groups that aren't straight white people, straight white men. And in general, they add a level of excitement that just following the same character for 80 years can't provide. And they add new angles to the stories that can be told.
And even then, because I've seen a lot of people say, like, this is just an example. I'm not necessarily saying this has to happen, but a lot of people say Stephanie Brown can't be Nightwing because she doesn't have a close relationship with Dick Grayson. And one, as if they can't build one. Come on. But two, Miles Morales did not gain a close relationship with Peter Parker until,
like a decade after his creation,
I'm about to say,
right?
until after he had already decided to become Spider-Man. He was inspired by Peter Parker's death to be Spider-Man.
Did Miles ever meet Peter before Peter died in that universe?
I don't think so. I think they might have retconned that he met him once, I think. But I'm pretty sure.
Retcons.
No, actually, I don't think he did. I think he met Aunt May and Gwen Stacy. I don't think he met Peter till after Peter came back and he turned out to still be alive and a bunch of dumb other stuff. But
Gotcha.
But anyway, but back to but just back to the idea of, you don't necessarily have to have a close relationship or any relationship at all. If you are inspired by that the person's original mantle, and especially if then they then die
or disappoint you and they don't live up to your standards,
then go ahead, take it. like I don't know, like people try to gatekeep how legacy characters are allowed to exist, and I think that's ridiculous.
Like another thing they'll say is, oh, they're just clones of the original, why do we need them? And this book really does cover a lot of the arguments against that. One, it shows that the kids are more diverse. Two, it shows that they understand heroism a lot more than the jaded older people. Yeah. And three, they're more in touch and willing to handle situations peacefully as opposed to just going along with the system.
Exactly, because the original heroes in this book that got powers knew that the van and the mayor, like the government, like all these people knew that there was an alien
life form trapped inside the van
that was sending out this signal, because she would send out a signal which was an SOS, but then when it would come back down, it would give a random person powers. And I can understand, the first couple times, like, what's going on here? But eventually they figured it out pretty quickly when the guy came.
But they didn't want to sacrifice their powers, so they kept her trapped.
Exactly. So they just kept her trapped there. And then once the sidekicks figured it out, they were like, oh, well, we need to get her out immediately. Like, it wasn't even a question of, no, I like my powers. It's like, no, we need to get her out. It's like, are you kidding me? And then that's hero. That's what makes a hero.
Right.
And that's why I love legacy characters so much, because 9 times out of 10, they see heroism in such a more innocent, pure way, and basically the way it's supposed to be, especially in superhero comics. And that's why, going to Marvel for a second, when they did all different Avengers.
I was just about to bring this up because I compared Blue Aura to Kamala before, and this was just like her, Sam, and Miles putting the Avengers, because all you people do is fight each other.
Exactly, because right after Civil War II, everyone's just like, those three are just like, all you do is fight each other. It's just heroes versus heroes constantly. You aren't protecting anybody anymore. So they went and they formed the Champions, and Champions is such a great team, and it's such a great message that they're trying to do. I really hope they get back to it someday. But but it's still good character work, But there was a meaning behind what the Champions were supposed to represent, which I do think they're slowly getting back to. But that's sort of a surface level of what this book is sort of doing with the characters. Compared to what Champions was able to do. But
again, it doesn't have time to get into it too deeply, but the themes are there, and they are definitely appreciated. We are the target audience for those tropes. We're suckers for them. We love it. We're here for it.
Yeah, and I talk about this a lot too. I love limited series. I love minis, but they can be a double-edged sword, because you want to introduce a lot of characters, you want to introduce a universe, you have 5 issues, and it's just like,
or less. Sometimes you only get 4.
or 4, or, and that's tough. And good writers can still do what they need to do. You could still say, okay, unfortunately, we're gonna have to sacrifice this for this, but it should still work out overall. And a lot of times it still does. Bad writers, it was dead on arrival anyway, so who cares? But reading this, you still do get a complete story, and that's in the end with some good character stuff. So that in the end is what's important, is that you still do get that complete story from beginning, middle, and end.
Good
One of the
characters,
things,
good comedy, really good humor.
yes, one of the things I really would have been interested in, that I would have loved if this got a sequel, was just how the world changed after, because and the van was there for decades. I want to say like the 70s is when it
Yeah.
got there.
That's why it looked the way it did.
Yes, so the world basically, worshipped this van for, well, I don't know if the world, the city worshipped this van for as long as it did. So I would have been very interested to see how it changed the characters and that city after, with the van gone now and with the alien gone and the crisis no longer a threat, basically. I would have been very interested to see how that would have changed if, and the villains would still just be villains just because at the end, that the heroes are still heroes. They choose Blue Aura, or Shine, as she calls herself at the end, but they have a group chat with her, Circuit, and Savage. And she's like, I know what we're going to call ourselves. And she's like, Superfreaks. So it's like, so they're still being heroes.
Hmm.
So I just wonder what it is they are doing now.
I'm just thinking of this now. It would have been hilarious if we could have like one panel epilogue for the villains, Rookie, Garb, and Red Googling how to rob a bank.
Oh, that would have been funny. That would have been pretty good. I would have liked something for the villain side of it too, just so we know what both sides are sort of doing. That would have been pretty good though, yeah. But so minis are great, but they, as with anything, has its pros and cons. But yeah, so that was my legacy rant and mini rant. Anything else you
Both
want to
things.
say?
No, I think I'm ready to go into final thoughts.
All right, cool. I'll go. But yes, final thought. This is a good book. As we said earlier, it's a great book to give to kids. It's a great book to just read if you're don't want to read anything too heavy and you're kind of just I don't feel like reading a comic, but I don't want to read anything that's gonna make me cry too bad.
And if you're a Legacy Hero fan who's tired of the big two not using theirs properly, here's a universe where the Legacy Heroes actually get their shine. They get to become the heroes permanently.
Like that's the plot of the book, which would never get in big two. But well, not anymore. At least there was a time. But yeah, overall, it's a very fun book. What do you think? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I pretty much said my due.
Yeah.
Bright colors, really funny, lots of potential but bubbling under the surface that you want to see on Earth, but there's still enough there to keep you going. I read it all in one sitting, I'll say that. It kept me invested.
Okay, cool.
The main mystery was good. Any book that can actually surprise you is always a good thing. Absolutely. And I'd recommend it to all the same people Wilson did. But we now have the responsibility of giving it a score with our brand new ranking system. Are you ready, Wilson?
All right, lay it on me.
Okay. How many vans from the 70s that you would never be seen driving in out of 10 would you give this?
Vans from the 70s.
That you would never be seen driving.
Yes,
in.
that kind of changes what it would be if it was just like, a normal out of 10 thing. But just based on what the description is. So I would say 7. I'll drive 7.
7 for the 70s?
Yes.
You know what? Legacy characters were not quite a thing in the 70s. Their boom really started happening in the 80s, so I'm going to give this 8 vans from the 70s that you would never be seen driving in out
8.
of 10.
Ooh.
Also, Wilson, I
Awesome.
have to ask.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. Would you be seen driving in a van like that?
Oh, not driving. I wouldn't drive. I'll get in a van like that, and chill in the back. But I'm not driving those types of vans. No.
I don't even have a license. But hey, I'm in New York. I can get away with that.
Yeah, that's true.
But all right, that's all for our show today. If you'd like to recommend us any comics to check out on the show, you can find me at Bobby L. Singer on Twitter and email me at samuel.singer98@gmail.com.
And you can find me at Dead Letter Poets on Twitter, and you can email me, smithwilson72@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time.
Have a great day.